So thank you everybody for joining us. This is the monthly webinar for Highrise Networks. We love to bring you different topics. And today we have Judy McKee. And the webinar is You Lost Me at Hello. So Judy is a nationally known motivational speaker, seminar leader, sales trainer, and author. Judy is a pioneer in the telemarketing industry, which really applies to all of us. Judy has client list of top 500 companies and has recently trained eHarmony, Stamps.com, Sylvian Learning Institute, American Express, Aetna, eBay, Spokio. So she is definitely an expert, and she's a fantastic member of Highrise. We've had a great time having her in the group, and I believe that she's made a few breakthroughs as well. So Judy, I'm going to throw it up to you and let you go ahead and get it started.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm going to open up and let everybody see my slides. I'm just thrilled to be here. I have only been a member of Highrise Networks for a short period of time and basically changed my whole life. And it was because of their inspiration and what they do for everyone at all those meetings that makes it such a joy to attend those meetings. I can only say that, I could talk for an hour on it, but I don't want to, because when invited to do a webinar on something that would support everyone in the organization, I decided that what I thought they would get the most out of would be the how to open any conversation. It's like the olden days. You think if you can't get your foot in the door, then you can't make a sale, and to me, if you can't open a conversation that delights the other person, or at least holds them in a way that they might be interested in what you have to say, then you're losing the opportunities. The opportunities are flowing by you as quickly as possible. And the only hard part about this course, and so I'm going to tell you what the hard part is right away, is that you may notice that I'm going to say things a little bit differently from the way that it's taught everywhere on the planet practically. And because I do that, it means that you sometimes have to say, well, wait a minute, I've never done that way. That's not how I do it. And I just want you to do this today. I'm going to give you some explicit tips, some good ideas, things that actually work, and they work more of a percentage than the other things that you might be doing now. Now, never give up what you're already doing. If it's working, that's the key. If it's working, keep doing it. Do not change what is working. But if you want a better number or a higher number or a more suggestive number that will help you to do better, it's always good to try something new. The only problem is, and pay attention to this, you have to let go of your old way, not try to prove your old way is right by using the new way. What you do is say, I'm just going to give up all my thoughts and I'm going to try this new way, and I'm going to put my whole heart and soul into it. And if you do that, you will see that these ways work. Now, we only teach in our training and our courses what works, because we don't have the time in most of our opportunities. We don't have the time to do it. So I'm going to give you 3 things never to say on an opening. I'm going to give you some ideas on how to open a conversation that could be either on the phone or in person, or some people use it for emails or chats. But remember this. We are always going to put the focus, always, 100% of the time, on the other person, instead of the focus being on us. And you will see that that will make you much more successful. And I love this song. I used to sing in cocktail bars when I was a young girl. And one of the great songs that I used to love was a song called Some Cats Know. And it's like cats being, smart people. And I'm just saying that the only reason why I think I know this is because I've been listening to phone calls for 40 years and trying to make the best of whatever we could. So here we go, and here are your ideas. I am going to go pretty fast, but I believe you can have a copy of the slides if you like afterwards.
Okay, Judy,
Because
one quick question, or
yes.
one quick comment. Anybody who'd like to ask a question during the process, please use your chat, and we'll be responding to those shortly. So, because you've all been muted. And
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Everybody's been muted except me. I
Correct.
get I get to talk all the time. All right, very good. And yes, put your questions on the chat, and then if we don't have time during the program, I will also answer them later. All right, thank you very much for coming today. Here we go. We're going to learn something today. So I always say, what is the most important thing that you can do in the opening of any conversation? And this is what I want you to remember always. Create a love me, trust me in the first seconds. You see, the prospect, the person you're speaking to, needs a safe environment. So in order to do that, we want to create a love me, trust me way of speaking at the very first moment we say hello. That is why when I teach networking, I say never shove your card in the face of anyone. Never. Wait. Almost make them beg for it. In other words, I want them to ask you for your card, not for you, because eventually I want you to only get their cards, not give them so much. And you'll find that it works much better. But to create a love me, trust me in the first 20 seconds of any phone call or of any network meeting or of any meeting anywhere in the boardroom, you have to create a love me, trust me in the first 20 seconds. Now, I say that if you're going to do that, what does it take? How do you do that? How do you create a love me, trust me attitude right away? Well, when I'm training people, I make them sit down and write down what is their intention before talking to the person that they're talking to. In other words, they need to know, what do they want from this conversation? What do they want to happen, even if it's just in the next 10 seconds? What do they want to happen? So I always say that I want my customer or my potential customer to know that it is my intention that they succeed more. So then I need to say something that's going to make them feel like I can be trusted, or I am interested in what they say. So it's kind of fascinating to notice that most salespeople go in and say, well, I want them to be a client of mine. I want to make money. I want to be successful at selling my goods. Yes, that's right. But how will that affect the other person? And let's get our intention to be more lofty. And then, of course, I always want, enlightenment. I want them to be enlightened, and I want myself to be enlightened. I want to be open to whatever is coming next. So that is how you create a safe environment, not by scheming, not by trickery, not by asking a question that is manipulative. That's very dangerous. It won't get you the results that you really want. So I say, okay, so find out what works. The key is always to find out what works. Now, I can tell you that when I started my company, which was in 1979, which I know that makes me an old bird, but here's the thing. In all those years, I didn't know in the beginning what would work. I was trained by a lot of very highly manipulative trainers that came out of the 50s, and I did not like the attitude that they had. I didn't want to be pushy. I wanted to be very good. I had 3 kids to put through college, so I needed the money, but I also wanted to be sure that I only did what worked. I don't have time to do what doesn't work. So every day I used to make a list. And by the way, if you're pretty new in any kind of business, I highly recommend this. It is a little extra work every day, but you take 15 minutes at the end of the day and you really examine what you did all day today, and you say, what worked? What worked today? And what didn't work today? Of course, when I was selling real estate and I found out that I had not even been with or talked to a buyer or a seller in that whole day, I said, wait a minute, that doesn't work. I've absolutely got to be talking to buyers or sellers, or else I'm not in real estate. So that is what I did. I don't want to dig out. I want to say the right thing right away. I want to have my customer or prospective customer like me immediately. So I say, well, why is hello the most important thing? Well, I think that often we think that if we are clever or smarter, or we show that we are special, or we tell them we're make it happen kind of people, that that's going to get us what we want. But I will tell you this, it's kind of interesting. Over the 40 years of my career, I found out that people care more about themselves than they do about me. And at first I didn't like that because I thought I'm there to help them. But it is the truth, the truth. And or maybe it's a fact, I don't know for sure. But here is what you need. You need that love me, trust me, and you have to do what works. So let's drop what doesn't work. Now that just means you're going to have to take a moment every little bit of a time, maybe once a week, maybe once a day. When I had a mentor, which we didn't have coaches in my day, but I had a mentor, and he made me write down what was complete every day. What did I complete every day? And what was incomplete for me every day? And then on Friday, I had to report to him what I did that was incomplete and what I was going to do about it. It didn't mean I couldn't just drop it, but it meant that I had to be sure that I paid attention to what was incomplete. And so what I do is I start every training course, and this works for all of my clients as well. And that is what I call IRDS, or Intention, Relationship, Discipline, and Skill. Now in this half hour, we don't have time for all of that, but I can give you some quick ideas about it. So when I said you want to pick up the phone, or you want to meet a new client, or you want to start a meeting or a presentation or anything else, you want to absolutely be sure you start with intention. What is your intention? And the intention simply means being determined in advance. That's what it means. Be determined in advance. So before I started this speaking engagement, I sat down for a few moments before I tuned in with Forrest, and I said, what is my intention? What am I determined to do in this course? And I wrote down a few things that I was determined to do. Now, the next thing is we teach relationship. Now, I'm going to tell you the negative side of this, because I'll tell you why. Most people fear the negative. The negative is stronger than the positive. And so you have to notice that before you can move to the positive. So you want to remember this: never make the other person feel wrong or stupid. Never make the other person feel wrong or stupid. And you say, well, how do I not do that when they are stupid? Or maybe they're ignorant, or maybe they don't know what they're doing. I know, that's the trick. That's the hard part. That's why the greatest salesman in the world that I met, I got to interview once about 20 top producers in different fields, and almost to a person, every one of them said, well, I'm just not very good at closing. What a joke. They closed all the time. They never were not closing. But I will tell you this, they never made other people feel wrong or stupid, and they didn't even know the rule. They just they unconsciously knew not to do that. That is why salespeople open a call with, are you familiar with McKee Consulting? Well, that makes the other person feel stupid. So you see, you would change the question. You wouldn't ask that question, are you familiar with? Maybe they're not. And maybe if they're not, they'll feel bad or some way. We don't want that, especially in an opening greeting. All right, be willing to change that old how are you. You know, my rule, and you'll see it as a rule later, is never to make the person wrong or stupid. So why would I open any call to a stranger and say, how are you? That old 50s technique is dead, and we don't want to use that anymore. The only time you say how are you to anyone is when you know them. When you know who they are, you've met them before. But not on an opening. It does not build rapport. And if you listen to yourself or other people or people that work for you, and you listen to them make a cold call or something, and they say, how are you today? You can then listen to the tone of the other person, and you will hear, fine, or you will hear, what is it? What are you trying to sell me? I don't want to buy anything. I'm not, they answer all these different things. So we want to be sure we are willing to change the ways that do not work. And instead, we want to have skillful conversation. It's conversation that is generated by an idea whose time has come. In other words, skillful conversation, soft skills are in demand right now. I'll tell you, we get more calls right now. It's shocking, actually. How many calls we are getting from companies to teach the techies how to talk. because the techies have gone on the phones. They've come out of the back room. They're not in the back room just working on the computer. They are talking to clients and customers, and they don't know how to talk to them without making them wrong and stupid. So we're getting called by that. It's pretty amazing. So always make the other person feel as though that other person has done absolutely the right thing to talk to you. That's what they want to be. If you will notice in this world, if you were to not do anything, the way I started my, I haven't got a long time for that. Just remember this statement because it really helped me. Think about what you're thinking about. In other words, spend a day, give your career a day where you think about what you're thinking about. Like, what are you thinking? What are you really thinking? Or are you just on automatic? All right, and then you might discover that what you're thinking is that you're worried that they're not going to buy, or that you're worried that you're not saying it right, or something like that. If you can do that, you will discover how many doubts you really have, and then you will know why "how are you" to a stranger doesn't work. So never say that. Instead, use some words or phrases or a question that gets you permission to move further. That gets you permission to move further. And here's another one. This is a tried and true rule. This is from listening to thousands and thousands and thousands of telephone calls. Never use the word time is the rule. Now, it's okay if you use it for a thank you. In other words, in the beginning, you never say, "Do you have time?" Or never say, "Could I have a moment of your time?" Or never say, "This is going to be worth the time for both of us." Or anything that uses the word time, because time is unending. It's forever. And people know this on a subconscious level, and so they are afraid to give you time. So you could use it at the end of a call when you have had a wonderful conversation with someone, and then you can say, "Thank you so much for your time." And that will work much better. Time should only be used as a thank you to the customer, not as a way to ask for something. So we're never going to make that customer feel wrong or stupid with any question, any answer, any response, or any solution. Now that gets tricky because you have to learn how to speak a little bit better. You have to learn how to say something. So even if you're on the phones, and what I tell agents all the time, and don't even roll your eyes, because we can feel it on the other side. So test your words, because what I'm telling you has already been tested. It's been tested by me for many, many years. And it works better. I'm not saying it's perfect. I have someone in one of my trainings said, "Well, Judy, if I always ask for permission, am I going to make more money?" And I said, "I don't know if you're going to make more money, but I know you will have the chance to make more money." It's a guarantee you're going to have a chance to make more money. So what we want is openers that have a chance. So you want to always give the prospect the information he or she needs to make a decision. Now, I would say I would open some call. Now, I made up a script here. This, of course, is very generic, and it might work differently for you because each one of you have a different thing that you're doing. We have so many companies. I don't know exactly how many, but many, many companies online here. And so they have all kinds of different ideas. And so I wrote this general one, and you can fill in the blanks if you want. But I will tell you, and I'm going to take a little bit of credit here, I've been writing scripts for businesses for probably 30 years. I started my business 40 years ago, but I didn't write scripts then. I didn't write them until Discover Card called and asked me for a script. And I thought that was very interesting because I wrote them a script. I charged them $400, I remember. And they called me right back and said, "This is not like all the other scripts we have." And it was hard for me not to make them wrong because I wanted to say, "Well, yeah, that's what you called me for, to write you something different because what you're using now isn't really working, right?" But that's not what I said. What I said is, "Yes, that's right. It is a little different. Probably it would be better if I came and trained your people in how to use this script rather than how to say these words, because I would prefer they actually don't read the words or read any scripts. I'd rather them know what to say and how to say it."
Yeah, Judy, I wanted to make a comment here too that a lot of our communications, especially for lawyers on the webinar here, is through email. So it still applies.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, verbally or digitally, we still have to communicate with people in a positive way that does not put them down. So I just wanted to reinforce that.
Well, thank you for reinforcing that, because I'm telling you, I'm training attorneys all the time. I'm going in next month, or is it February yet? I'm going into Florida to train 70 attorneys, not because they don't know the law, they know it. But what we're going to train them in is soft skills and how to say how they can deliver that information about the law to their clients in a way that doesn't make their clients feel wrong or stupid. Because they've got something called nowadays in big businesses called KPIs, meaning, what are the rules and how is it making their people feel? And the people are filling out surveys all the time, and they're saying, when my person talks to me, he puts me down. It makes me feel small. It makes me feel wrong, or they don't really say wrong or stupid. They just say other words. But it's always the same thing, isn't it, Forrest? People want to be right. And they want to feel good when they call their lawyer. And the lawyer wants to help them with all their heart. They do. They don't go into business not to help their clients. They go into business to help their clients. It's just that they have such good help and such strong knowledge and the ability to deliver the law that they need to speak it in a way that makes the ever not so smart client feel good about it. So in this opener, I just wrote, thanks for taking my call, Mr. Big. I know that you may or may not have heard of me, but you may be interested in considering our business, because we demonstrate to people how to save money and time using training programs or whatever it is you're doing. And then you ask a question, and you customize this for your business. And you must be sure, now here's a clue, please look at your questions or ask me, write to me and say, is this question okay? Because so many people think their question is okay, and it isn't. For instance, if you say, well, we've got this and we've got that for you, isn't that fair? How does that sound? Use this instead. I already wrote it on another chart, I think. Will that work for you? That's my favorite question of all time. I tell people what to do and then say, will that work for you? Now, work is the key word there. But in this case, I would ask for permission. I'd say, do you have a minute? Or do you have a moment to talk? Something like that. I wouldn't say, do you have time? Remember that. We don't use that word. So an opener must be twofold. First, it has to get permission to move forward. And second, we have to, I want to move this. I can't see I can move it over there. Second, we want to offer a benefit or the information the prospect needs, because people are ever constantly making decisions. I mean, they're making decisions 1,000 times a minute. And so what we have to do is we have to make sure that what we say makes them very, very comfortable when they respond to us, so that they don't have to answer some manipulation or some manipulative question. I know many coaches do that. They'll say, well, could you have done that better? Well, that indicates that we already judged the fact that you didn't do it right the first time. And yet they think they're helping them. I'm giving them feedback. No, that opening line doesn't make your person you're coaching feel better. So we've got to figure out another way to do it. So I'm going to give you some quickies here.
Okay, you got 5 minutes.
Is that all?
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, so words and ways that don't work. Obviously, simplicity is not easy for complicated minds. That's the first thing you have to remember. So we want to eliminate what doesn't work, period. Now, you just ask yourself, would you rather be right or rich? Now, I say I'd rather be rich, because that way I can give money away. If I'm rich, I can give money away. It's a lot of fun. So I want you to give up words that don't work. One is never use the word, are you familiar? Are you aware? Do you have time? Are you familiar with so-and-so? Never start with an open-ended question. That's been some new training program out there is now telling people to ask an open-ended question right away. No, an open-ended question is too what? Familiar. People don't feel safe when you ask them an open-ended question. So you should ask them a couple of closed-ended questions first, get in the groove, then ask an open-ended question. Does that sound good is not a good one. Look good is not as bad, but sound good is not a good expression. It doesn't catch as many good answers. It would be better to say, does that work for you? How will that work for you? Or don't use manipulative. You'd agree, wouldn't you? Or classic one, does that make sense? No, because you're asking for a judgment call on the part of the agent or on a part of your client. Instead, we are excellent at what we do. You know, I'll be very careful about that because you're bragging at that point, and it would be better to use a you sentence instead of that. You know, you might find we are excellent at what we do. That would make them smart. I can get you the best price. Well, how about you could get the best price working with us? We have excellent service 24/7. Doesn't everybody say that? So in that case, maybe we want to say you can take advantage of our service 24/7. Or we are always here for you. Now, I like that because I hope you mean it, but I've heard it so much that I'm now tired of it. So that's all. So I said, Mr. Dean, you may or may not be familiar with our company, but you will have heard about some of our biggest clients like Aetna or American Express. And then what's my question going to be? You know, maybe I just change the subject right off the bat and say, have you met the host? If I were networking, I would do that. I would say, well, you may have heard about our company. We work for Aetna and eBay and American Express. By the way, have you ever met the host of this evening's networking before? Now you changed the subject, you told them the information they needed to make a decision, and you changed the subject on the opener. How do you know him or her? In other words, that you can see that what I did with that was I took interest. I took interest in them. So I don't have much time. So imperatives, absolutely. You must create safety for your client and eliminate the risk for yourself. Words that would work better, words to love and live by, would be, would you consider, or here is an opportunity, or you can take advantage of. I would look back at my scripts and see how many times I said I, and I would see how I can reverse that sentence to be you, because people don't care about, these pronouns are weird. People don't care about you, they only care about themselves. So you've got to give it up that they'll care about you, and instead you care about them, and they will feel that you care about them. You know, I said to Pam the other day, I was telling her that one of the funniest things in the world to do if you really want to learn this lesson is watch a QVC. Watch it for an hour. Do this as homework. And you will see that every sentence that practically comes out of their mouth uses the word you, and they make millions and millions and millions of dollars every day. And the reason is because they don't say, I think this is cute, I think it's good, I think the price is right. No, they say, you'll look good in this in the morning, the afternoon, or the evening. You will be able to take this opportunity and make money with it. It's all about you. So you have to say sentences like, how might we be considered when you want to close a sale? Or would there be an opportunity for us to do blank, blank, blank? Or, wow, that's lightning. I heard that. All over Los Angeles, I'll bet. Big. Okay, you can take advantage of, or would you have a minute? You may or may not know this. Now, I was very careful to word that way. I don't say you don't know. I say you may or you may not know this, but, and then you tell them. Now, you can see that if you do that, what happens is they may not know and they're still okay, and they may know it and they're still okay. So there's no risk for them. So you would change words like offer choices that make people right. So you may or may not be familiar. Not are you familiar, but you may or may not be familiar. That makes them right. Some people are not aware and others are very aware of blank. 3 choices instead of a hard question. That would be a good thing to remember. I don't have time to write some out right now, but I would say you could save time, you can save money, and you can save energy. You can have peace of mind. You know, I would give them the benefits right in my sentence. Some people really like vanilla and some like chocolate. but for some reason they also like Chunky Monkey. What's your favorite? Now, I did that with ice cream just so that you could see that's how I would present some choices to people. It doesn't matter what your subject you're talking about. I could write the script that said some people like this, some people like that, some people like this. It's easy for 3 choices. Remember this, especially the lawyers, when you're speaking to a client, if they have 10 choices or 5 choices, I would remind you they can only hear 3 at a time. So I would set them up with something like, there are many ways we could go with this, Mr. Client, but I'll give you 3 to start with, and then we'll talk about the rest, okay? That would make them more comfortable. Okay, take advantage of, save time, save money, peace of mind. You may want to. That's a really great opener for something. One of my favorites, as always, I tell people, you may want to do this, because what I'm really doing is telling them what to do. And you need to keep in mind that change is always difficult. People don't like change, yet they call you because they want change. So you have to have that in your mind. All right, so do we have 5 more minutes, or are we done now, Forrest?
We are at 10:31, so I'd like to conclude and open up some questions. Do you want to make a final conclusion here?
Very good. Does anyone have any questions, or have they written any in?
No, just a couple of comments.
All right, good.
It just says, when you say something like, you may not know us, but we work with some big companies like American Express and eBay, is there a risk that comes across as bragging? Is that
yes, that could come off as bragging, name dropping, something like that. Right. So depending on your business, what I would do is, I'm not saying that that's the way to do it. I'm saying that's a way to do it. What I would do is take a look at how you might introduce yourself without asking them if they are familiar with you. Mm-hmm. And there are different ways to do that. And you can do it lots of different ways. But I want for them to get agreement that they were right to talk to you. So I understand the point there that you might be bragging, but it also might mean that you're stating some facts that are real. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Other questions out there? I don't have anything in chat currently.
Good.
Let's give it a minute. I'm sure somebody will pop up.
I love to answer questions.
Did you read Steve Garcia's comment?
I did.
Before we close, while we're waiting for someone to write in a question, there's something very important. I don't know how many, we have so many different companies online, that this was some way that I made many companies millions of dollars. And I am bragging when I say that, but I'm only bragging because they didn't know what to say. They were trying very hard, and I gave them a new way to say it. And it really worked for everyone that we've done. That's why we did eHarmony. That's why we did Discover Card, because people wanted to cancel their subscriptions. And the question that people usually ask is, why do you want to do that? What have we done wrong? What can we do to fix it? And it doesn't work. And so instead, what you definitely do want to do is you want to say it in a way that makes them right to have called you. So I would say the person wishes to cancel or change their agreement with you in some way. I would say, Mr. Smith, I am so sorry to hear that. You have been with us for a long time. Now, this is the LAMA technique. This is an acknowledgement. You have been with us for a long time, and that I am so sorry to hear that. And the question, and this is the most wonderful question, if you need it, write it down. May I ask what caused you to make that decision? And the reason this is such a good question is, if you will notice, they could say a yes or a no to this. They could say, yes, you can ask me that question. Or they could say, no, you can't ask me that question. Now, that's a reality of life. And if they do, then you can change it back to, oh, I know, I want to rephrase my question. I'm going to rephrase it a little bit better and say, just what caused you to make that decision?
Right.
Now, this way is a softer way, and 86% of people will give you the answer of why they want to cancel. And that's because that's what we want to know without using the question why. We want them to feel empowered at having made a decision. They have every right to. and we want them to know that we know they made a decision. We just want to know why they made that decision in case there's something we can fix.
Judy,
Okay.
do we have a question? When closing a B2B sale, can we assume the sale by using the phrase, so when do we start, the contract or an appropriate closing statement?
Right. No, I would not do that. I would not use assumptive close unless they had already said yes to about 3 or 4 other things. I would never assume a close. It's manipulation to assume a close. And people are not comfortable with it, which is why it's still out there trying to be fixed, because it never gets fixed because people think they should assume that the customer is going to buy. Now, if I had offered the customer something and they said, yes, we want that, and then I offered them something else and they said, yes, we want that, then probably I would set up the closing question with, well, since you, and I would start that way with those 2 words, since you want this and since you want that, and since we have this, would you like to go ahead and get started?
Perfect.
But I would base it on what they already said. I wouldn't think I gave them a great pitch and now I say, MasterCard or Visa.
Right.
I couldn't do it.
So next question.
By the way, Forrest, I want to say something more. I love that question they asked, because that is key to life in the sales business. Because of this, you don't just want to trick them and conjure up one sale because of some urgency at that moment in time. What you want is a long-term client that comes back. I've got clients for 20 years, and it's because I never manipulate them. Now, some of them I don't get up front, but I never lose them. I had a job with Toys R Us that I did not get, but I didn't make them wrong. They came back years later.
Nice. Another question is, what's the best way to make sure they're tracking with what you're saying? Do you say something like, does that sound right to you? What do you?
Well, that is, by the way, Forrest, with that question, that's brilliant. I love it. It's like I seeded the audience, because our LAMA technique, the technique that we teach, which we are not doing here on this show today, this program, but this is why we are successful in business. We teach a technique, so I'm going to give it to you very quickly. The technique is to listen to what they say, acknowledge what they say. You'll see it's here on the script right here. I said, Mr. Smith, I am so sorry to hear that. That's an acknowledgement of what I heard. You have been with us for a long time. That's a statement. That's a comment or a statement. It could be a sales message if I were selling something. And then I say, may I ask what caused you to make that decision? That's the question. Now, as this person just asked that question about how do I know they're tracking, the way that they're tracking is you don't talk on and on and on and on and on like I'm doing in this webinar. You don't just keep on talking. You make a point or two, and then you say, is that clear? Was I clear about that? Or never say, are you clear? Because that's an accusation, you see. Instead, you say, was I clear about that, John? And then they'll say, oh, yeah, I get it so far. And then you say, oh, this is coming to you in 3 parts. Maybe you've got a big, long thing you want to tell them. Just know they can't hear you after 15 seconds. They can't. They cannot hear it. So why are you pitching endlessly? I meet these people who go on and on and on. And why they do it is somebody told them, and this was a lie. I'm telling you straight out, this was a lie, that you should build value, build value, build value, build value, build value, then hit them with the price. That's wrong. You need to build value and ask a question. Discover some more things and acknowledge it. I get that. And in fact, I think we have an answer for you about that. I think you should do blank, blank, blank. Would that work for you? Or how would that work for you? Or does that sound like, I would use sound sometimes, would that sound like something your whole company would be interested in? Actually, I'm asking them, are they interested? Not if they sound interested. So I would track constantly with that customer. I like the idea of always be selling and at the same time always be discovering and never be pitching, because pitching is over. People can't hear it. They cannot hear it. So you want to say, well, here's what you could have, and this could do this for you or that for you or make you money or time or energy or use all your benefit words. And then say, would that be something you'd be interested in? Would that be something that would work for you? Am I speaking and making it clear for you? Things like that. Okay? I know that's going to be helpful, because whoever asks that means that they're probably talking to the client, B2B maybe, and they want to be sure that the client hears what they've just told them. So they want to know, how do I make sure they're doing it? Well, you do it with the LAMA technique. By the way, you can go to my website. It's right on there, how to do it. Listen, acknowledge, make a statement, ask a question. I also have a free app that we just put up. I forgot about it because we haven't announced it to the world yet. But we do have a LAMA app out there, but it's really more of a personal basis, but they can learn the LAMA technique. It's the most wonderful technique. It's what's made me successful for all the years. But it's just because people don't think that they need to acknowledge everything they hear. And that is just what that person just asked us. How do I know they got it? Well, they need to acknowledge you, but maybe you need to ask them for the acknowledgement.
So there's two more questions, and then we'll close.
I love questions.
So is there a difference in opening technique between having an introductory conversation as a phone call as opposed to a face-to-face? Is there a difference?
I don't think so. In my mind, there's no difference.
Yeah.
But when you're on the phone call, it's much harder because you can't make eye contact with someone. Right. So when you're on the telephone, and it's definitely more difficult to make a cold call, and they are cold. That is why your opener has to be twofold. First, you get permission to go further. So before anyone would give you permission, you need to give them a benefit, a good reason to listen to you. This might help you. This might make you money. This might be exactly what you need. I don't even know if that's true. Do you have a minute? Or that's not very good. I would write it clearly about your particular product. But right. in person, you get to make that eye contact. But yes, you should open your conversation by asking the other person, what do they do? You know what? You know, when I went to the network meeting at Christmas, I met a lot of wonderful people. And believe me, if you went back and talked to them individually, they would tell you I was interested in them. That's what they would tell you, because I took complete interest in them. And I didn't even have to pitch myself, because they're going to come back and ask me about me. So I would open the conversation with, my name is, we're in the training business, and you know, we've trained a lot of companies, but what kind of a company do you have? What do you do? And then they would talk to me about what they do. Now, what I personally, the way I would do a network, and now this is my little tricky network thing, so you can all take advantage of this since we're in the network business. I would introduce two other people to each other and not even tell them anything about me if I were personally at a party, which is what I would do if I had known more people at that was the first party I ever went to, the Christmas. But if I were going more often, I would introduce the lawyer, you know, to another lawyer that does a different kind of a business, so that they could get acquainted. And then what would happen is those two people would have to turn and say, well, wait a minute, Judy, what do you do? So they would be opening up that conversation.
So the closer is, we'll ask this one other question, but the closer is what does LAMA stand for?
Here it is. It's on the screen.
The question before that is, when building value on a call, usually long into your call before you get right to it, is there a rule of thumb basically as to how long within a introductory call do you hit them with your value prop?
Oh, very good. All right, here's what I would do. I would definitely ask 3 questions first. A closed-ended question, another closed-ended question, and then an open-ended question. Now, I would do all of that with the LAMA, because in the beginning, I've asked for permission. So let's say I don't know what business they have, but let's say I don't know give me an idea what business
it's a law firm.
It's a law firm. So the law firm is calling what? Where are they calling people because they want to?
It's probably more an inbound call that somebody calls and says, "Hey, Alex, I've got this corporate transaction I want to do. You know, why should we use you?"
Yes. Why should we use you? Basically, then I would say, the first thing I would do is acknowledge them for calling me. I would say something like, "Well, you certainly did call the right place." This is our field of expertise. Now that's a statement. We know practically everything there is to know about that particular subject. Now, I don't want a what question. I want a question that maybe would open the door to more of a conversation. How did you hear about us? Or I would say maybe another way to go. Now, we did this with a huge telephone company. We trained them to say, oh, I'd be glad to answer every question you have, because they would call and I want to inquire about this or that. And we would say, perfect, you called the right place. We will give you all the answers to those questions. Are you calling because of blah, 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 whatever it was? I would ask something short, something easy for them to answer, like an insurance company that put out ads for a new service they had for long-term care. They were making this mistake. The phone rang off the wall because of the ad. It was an inbound call. They picked up the phone and they said, this is such and such insurance company. How may I help you? The person said, oh, I want to get some more information about the long-term care. And the agent said, oh, sure, we'd be glad to give you that information. What do you want to know? And the person didn't know the answer to the questions. They didn't know what to ask. So we completely changed it to, we'd be glad to answer all your questions. Where are you calling from? What state? Things are different in every state. So what state are you calling from? And by the way, did you want full-time care, half-time care? You want to take care of your mother 1 day a week and have someone else do it the other 4? Or what did you have in mind about that? In other words, I want to open, my rule of thumb would always be to ask 2 easy to answer closed-ended questions before I go to what. And now watch this. Here's where you come with the value statement, proposition. In between every question, I would put a little good thing that we do related to that. I would put something in between before asking the next question. So every single time they were giving me an answer, they already knew something good about my value or my proposition.
Excellent. Why don't you tell us LAMA, and then we'll conclude.
All right, I'll give it to you very quickly. LAMA stands for listen, acknowledge, make a statement, or 2, sometimes 3, but never more than 3. Never, never, never. That's too long. That's a pitch. Now you're talking way too long. I call it, talking past the close. Way too much. And then you ask a question, and then you make sure the question doesn't make the customer feel wrong or stupid. Remember, everything is about them. Whenever you see a script, I get these scripts from companies all the time. They never say what the customer said. Well, I'm going to relate to what the customer said. What do you think the customer is going to say when I say, do you have a minute to talk?
No.
Of course, they get mad at me and they say, no, I don't have a minute to talk. Good, then I don't want to talk to that person. And you know why? Because I don't have their attention on my intention. And so I'd rather have 10 calls go by and everybody said no, but when I get the one who says yes, that's going to be real. And I prefer it because I don't want to talk to anybody without permission. I wouldn't call Forrest and just start talking to him. I would call Forrest and I would say, do you have a minute? Because it's polite. And he would say, no, I can't talk now. And I used to love it when people would say, no, I don't, because I didn't ask for time. Remember this, I didn't ask for time. I asked for a minute. So if they say, no, I don't have a minute, I say, great, I'll call you back on Thursday. Do you think you have a couple minutes then? Now, what would happen is I made them they have every right to choose their own time and what they want to do. Just because I called them doesn't mean they should stop their life and listen to me. What they should do is stop their life and listen to me if what I'm going to say to them is going to make any difference at all to them. It's going to be interesting to them. If it's going to be something that's going to make them richer, smarter, bigger, then they will listen to me. And even though, and by the way, I learned this by being told by some guy I had to make 100 calls to get a sale. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I only want to make 10 calls and I want to make a sale. So I didn't like this dialing for dollars, millions of numbers. I mean, you can do numbers if you want to, but believe me, my intention is to serve somebody every day. So I want a client every day. I want somebody either to call me. I want to track somebody through my emails, my tweets, or however you're advertising. And then when they call me, I'm closing that, as much as I can. Now, you always don't close on the first call, but you listen to what they say and you acknowledge them. Now, I want you to pay very close attention to the word acknowledge. I did not say agree with them. That's very important. You're not saying, I agree with you. You're saying, I hear you. I acknowledge you. I know that you're saying what you're saying because you think that. And we're going to give every person who ever speaks to us the right to have their own thoughts, the right to have their own ideas, and so on. So whatever they say to me, if I said, do you have a minute to talk? And they said, yes, I have a minute. I had a high D character, the driver personality. He said, yeah, I got a minute, go. And I said, good, I can do this in a minute. I know I can. Or someone said once, well, what do you want to sell me? And I said, I want to sell you a sales training. What do you think?
Nice.
Or someone once, and so I acknowledge it. Like when I started, how I learned this, by the way, was in real estate. People, when I called about real estate, they'd say, I don't want any real estate agent. I can sell my house myself. Now, what do you think I said to them? I didn't say anything that I was taught about how good we were, how smart we were, how much we know, and how much they don't know. What I said was, you got that right. I said, the only thing you need is one buyer. That's all. That's all you need in the whole world is one buyer. And maybe if I'm really smart, I'd be able to help you to find a buyer. But, where are you moving to anyway? Now, you see what I did there?
Right.
Change the subject with a question they do know the answer to. And they would start to tell me, well, we're moving to Ohio where they don't shoot you on the freeway. And so I would say, oh my gosh, I know it's been terrible. All these people are out there shooting people out of their cars. I can't believe it. Road rage, I think they call it. Well, how soon do you need to be in Ohio?
Right.
Now that would be human being. And I got listing after listing after listing after listing. And I got appointment after appointment after appointment. People in my office would say, how do you get all those appointments? I couldn't figure out how they didn't get all those appointments. It was so easy. And it was all because when I had a real live person, I heard what they said. I acknowledged what they said. When they said, I don't want to pay any money, I would say, yeah, I know. It would be great if you could sell your house and not have to pay me 6%. I bet you could think of a better way to spend that money than to give it to me. But how soon do you need to sell the house by? I mean, by when do you need to be out? So I open a conversation with the question that makes them right when they answer it.
Well, Judy, it has been fantastic. Thank you so much. You held everybody's attention. Very few people popped off the call here. So great work. And Judy is with McKee Consulting, and her website is lamatraining.com. You can reach out to her, or you can find her at our local Highrise meeting in Glendale.
Yes.
Sometimes in Century City and sometimes in downtown. So Judy, I really appreciate you being here. Thanks everybody for attending as well. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the meetings and certainly on our webinar next month. Once again, thank you so much, Judy.
Could I say one little tiny thing?
Absolutely.
And they can all go home, go back to work. If you have any questions, you can email me at, I didn't put it on here, or maybe it's down on the bottom. No, it's not. But you can email me. I think it's in the Highrise listing, my email and my telephone number. If you have any questions about your script or anything, just send them over to me. I'll tweak it and send it back. Okay?
Amazing. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.